Hey, welcome to the second episode of the Roark Mix. And on this show, we have our friend Jock Climie. Jock, we've both known for a number of years, and we've known him through the university life. And then he went on to play professional football, got his law degree, partner in a law firm. He worked for TSN after he retired from pro football as he maintained his legal career. And so he's no stranger to the camera, and now he ditched that part of his life, but he's got 3 kids, and he's got a pretty cool life. But one thing that's always remained constant with Jock is the musical connection. First year he had that guitar, and then if you go to his cottage or if you're at a party and there's a guitar there, Jock usually finds his way to the guitar and gets to his happy place. And music's been a big part of his life. And so we're gonna have a good chat with our friend and to see all the things he thinks about when he thinks music and all those connections. So yeah, settle in, and we got a good long chat with our friend Jock.
Okay, so we've got our buddy Jock Climie with us, and I've known Jock for 3+ decades, and
you had to say it, didn't you? You had to date me then. Because everyone's thinking, how's that possible? The guy's no more than 35.
So I knew Jock at birth.
And in infancy.
And, we've known, I was thinking about this in terms of like, you could say, like a lot of people, them through stages of their life, or they did this, that, the other thing. But with you, you just added things on. So student, football, pro football, law school, all at the same time, kids, I think that was at the same time, like all this stuff that, so you had a lot going on always. And I wonder, I was thinking about some of the questions that we want to ask you, and I wonder if was there a period where you actually were musically stagnant because you were in survival mode with 3 kids and never discovering a thing? It's like just falling back on your old stuff, but we'll get there. Because I kind of like to start things chronologically in terms of, I know there was, you growing up, many siblings. I think your dad was into music. I'm not sure about your mom, but here. And then you spent some time in Lahr, Germany, because the family moved there. I believe your dad was involved in the army. And so what was the general vibe of music in your house that you can remember? And here, there, when did your musical memory kind of kick in?
Everyone in my family will still talk about the days of bombing all over Europe in our blue Volkswagen van when I was 5. So I had three siblings. So we were 4, 5, 6, and 7. And my parents were the type that every weekend, every March break, every Christmas holiday, it was in the van, and it was someplace crazy, Italy, Switzerland, France, wherever it was. And there was always music going in the tape deck, and it was my dad's music. And I laugh now when I think about how my kids basically run the music in the car. There was none of that back then. Like, I can't even imagine what would have happened if as a little kid I'd said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you put one of my tapes on?" Like, they would have looked at me like I had 2 heads. So it was all my dad's stuff. But those are all of our earliest memories, is listening to music as we went all over Europe. And Bob Dylan featured pretty prominently in those early days. And it wasn't, I would say my musical awakening, like I think a lot of people, I've been reading a lot of musical biographies lately, and it seems like a lot of people's musical awakenings happen around 11 or 12. That was absolutely my case. Before then, it was you were exposed to it, but not necessarily embracing it, not necessarily digging into it. Just, okay, that's not okay, but who cares? And then all of a sudden it's, wait a second, I really want to hear that again. I never want to hear that again. And that happened around 11 or 12. But before then, it was a lot of, Bob Dylan, Beatles, Muddy Waters, Jerry Jeff Walker, Jerry Lewis, Neil Diamond, And then it, you know, sometimes it would get off into Roger Whittaker and Nana Muscuri and opera and classical, and you know, it was just this wide range, and you kind of had to figure out, that not so much. Dad, you really have to put that on, and shut up, that's what we're listening to. And you know, other times it was like we're all bopping along and singing along.
Do you think he was making conscious decisions of what he wanted you guys to hear, or was it just his plan and you're going to follow along?
No, it was whatever he wanted. It was a different era back then, as the two of you know. It's like whatever mom and dad wanted, that's what happened. And if the kids liked it or didn't like it, that was largely irrelevant.
Mr. Bingham?
I want to know what the next step is. Where you had a little bit of musical freedom. At what point, or was there a point where the backseat listeners got a chance to express their musical vision, or did you have to come back to Canada before that all started to happen?
Well, it's kind of, I think it was called Sony Walkmans. You know, circa 1983 or something, when we had our own musical freedom. We never got control of the tape deck, but you could certainly throw your headphones on with the Sony Walkman at a certain point. But, you know, around 11 or 12, I suddenly, and my dad had this vast music collection, like vinyl, you know, that went for days. And it was around 11 that I started realizing that I wanted to play this and I wanted to play that. And it was generally, you know, Bob Dylan, Beatles, Paul, you know, Simon and Garfunkel were the stuff that he listened to that I would then listen to. And the Beatles were my first love, without a doubt. And the interesting thing about my journey with music was that I went through the Beatles the way the world went through the Beatles. So I was very attracted initially to "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and all My Lovin' and all those early songs. And I listened to his greatest hits, you know, 1964 to, you know, 1963, 64, 65. And then I found Rubber Soul, and that just like blew my mind. And then it was Sgt. Pepper's, and then it was White Album. And my musical maturity just started to evolve with the Beatles the way it did for the entire world. And I just started listening to those albums over and over again. And then my very first love, the first time that I actually heard a band that had nothing to do with my parents, that I fell in love with and had to get on a bus as an 11-year-old and travel across London to the record store that was closest, that was like 45 minutes away, was the Police. And it was to go buy Outlandish d'Amour, and then it was to buy Reggatta de Blanc. And those were my first albums that were mine and mine alone. Had nothing to do with my parents or my siblings. I bought those albums and I wore them out.
You have pretty good taste.
Thank you. I thought so.
You're just.
But I still feel like, I don't know, I very rarely met anybody else that had a huge love of the Police. I mean, you know, to this day, I don't hear people talk about them. I know they're a huge band, but it's the sort of band, I think there's lots of them out there. They're popular, they're on the radio a lot, so people just sort of take them for granted. But how many people love them from the day one, can sing along to all their songs, can sing along to Peanuts on, you know, their first album, like, and appreciate you know, some of the nuances of that band, right? I don't know that that's that common, but they were absolutely my first love.
I kind of wonder if they fall in the same thing as because they were overexposed, and then Sting had his, you know, his thing with his tantric sex, and it's like you kind of got a bit like you're a bit weird or a wee bit tainted. But I kind of think of that as Phil Collins was way overdone, and I go back to Genesis and Duke as one of my favorite albums, you know. But people are like, "Oh, Genesis, that's really schmaltzy," you know, like it was so pop, and I'm like, it really wasn't. And I wonder if Police fell into that crap for many people.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned that, because I think of, you know, albums in my early years, early teen years, that I wore out. And Genesis, you know, that album with Mama on it, and you know, that one, I wore that out. It's an amazing album. I almost never hear it on the radio, never heard it played. That was an amazing album. And you know, frankly, probably one of my top 3 albums of all time is Phil Collins' Face Value. And, you know, everybody just associates that album with In the Air Tonight, which was a great song. It's probably the song that when I play that album today, I skip it, because every other song on that album is mind-blowing. And you know, every song is so incredible and brings us such emotion to it. And so yeah, Phil Collins had that reputation because he has so much music that's trendy and poppy that I think sometimes you lose sight of the fact that there was some brilliant stuff with Genesis and with his solo career.
I'd just like to see you do the drum solo.
I wish I could do that drum solo.
School dance drum solo.
Which we all did.
Hey, so, you know, was Sony Walkman in Canada? Was that the Canada years? Like, you know, when
No,
did
that was large Germany for me when Sony Walkman came in. So I spent, 11, 12 was London, England for me. So that's when the Police came out. That's when I was falling in love with them and the Beatles. And then I moved to West Germany for 3 years. So that was grade 9, 10, 11. And you know, that's when you start to broaden your horizons a little bit. And I started to play guitar during that time, and you start, you know, it's high school, so you start hearing about bands from other people, and you're not just exposed to what your parents listened to. However, the interesting thing for me was I was in Germany, so there was no radio for me, right? I wasn't listening to German radio. So if you heard music, it was because your parents played it, or you had a buddy who had a tape, or you made mixtapes and you traded them around, or you bought your own.
Yeah.
So can you comment on the differences between life in Germany in terms of high school, and then high school in Ottawa? Last couple of years, I think you spent in Ottawa. And, you know, Chris and I talked about this before, about factions in high school, in terms of like, were there many divisions in high school in Germany as opposed to Canada, you know, in terms of you had to fit in somewhere, or, you know, did you like enough things that you could fit in with different people? And were there factions in terms of, like, you just saw like the goth crowd and metal crowd and you know, mod crowd? Was there that?
Not associated with music so much. Though I'm sure there were musical divisions along those lines. But when I was in Germany in grade 9, 10, 11, I was actually a DJ at our local youth center. And so, you know, music for me was largely centered around being in this DJ booth with the lights, you know, all around me, and the disco ball, and you know, controlling all the lights and all the music, and just figuring out, what do people want to hear? What do they want to dance to? When is it time to put the slow song on? When is it time to kick in Air Supply? When is it time to crank it up with Jackson 5, whatever, right? And you're just trying to so that was really my first introduction to understanding how, you know, musical rhythm worked, and who likes what, and what get a crowd going at a certain time. And understanding that what you like isn't necessarily what other people like. So sometimes you got to play soft sell, which I couldn't stand, but you know, it was a crowd favorite, so I got to play that. And then I get back to Canada in grade 12, and I was probably pretty disconnected from music during those 2 years, just trying to figure out how to fit in with a new crowd and in a new city. But things cranked up when I got to Queens in first year.
What was your DJ name?
You know what? I wasn't cool enough to have one. I didn't even, that was a problem with being in Germany. We didn't know that we should all have DJ names. Like, we didn't know how to be really cool, because we're completely separate. This is like way before social media, right? We had no TV, we had no radio. We're just like suddenly 500 kids living in some small, you know, base in West Germany, and we have no idea. We're just kind of making up cool as we went along. So,
are you sure it wasn't? Are you sure it wasn't East Germany, by the sounds of things?
You could be mistaken for that. We had some fun. No, it wasn't that bad. We were pretty cool with our bell bottoms, and you know, we had some things that, you know, we had going on.
How many times did you play 99 Luftballons?
That. And then do you play it in English, or do you play it in German? These are decisions you had to make, because we're in Germany too. So, you know, most of the
German version was far hotter.
It was great. And Scorpions was always a big hit. You know, they were German, and you know, so yeah. You had
every time I see you, I'm going to play Soft Cell. I guarantee it. I'm going to play Tainted Love every time I see you. That's going to be your walk-on song from now on.
Awful song.
Welcome to the first tee, Jock Climie. And then he's going to have the excuse like, I got an 8 on that hole because that fucking song.
I should have never mentioned that.
Getting back to Canada was interesting because that was the first time I ever was exposed to live music. I mean, there was no going to concerts in Germany. Like, no one came to our little town. So that was interesting to start thinking about. Oh, who do I want to see, and having my first experiences with that.
What was your first experience then? Like, was it high school?
Yeah, my first experience was, believe it or not, U2.
Lansdowne?
During the war tour, and I was second row, right in front of the edge, at the Civic Center in Ottawa, and it was a mind-blowing experience. Like,
you memorized the 3 chords.
He could play 3 chords like no business, but it was, I mean, they had so much energy, and wow, it was, they had these people front who would just like spraying water on people just to keep us from passing out, and we were just jumping up and down, and I was 15 years old or whatever it was. It was incredible. And the next concert I saw was Bryan Adams, which was equally mind-blowing, and I was in the same place, second row. Thousands of people. That high, I don't know if you guys experienced that, those first concerts, that music, live music high. It's nothing like it. I've been chasing it for the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah, and that I was thinking about this today. With your kid, did you take your kids to any concerts? So I know today, like, I mean, when your kids go to concerts, you go with them, and I'm like, geez Louise. And my upbringing, I'm like, this would not be happening. I'm like, you don't need to see how I behave here. I just can't imagine that.
Yeah, I know. I've taken them to a few concerts, and that was fun to see them react. But they were young. We went to see Bruno Mars in Montreal, for example, a few years ago, and Jaden, who was probably, I don't know, 7 or something, just had his hands over his ears the entire concert because it was too loud for him. And then my 2 girls were just jumping up and down, like beside themselves. They were so giddy with excitement. But that's fun to see your kids experience what I experienced, at U2 and Bryan Adams, just that rush of live music.
I was the bad parent who took my kid to an all ages punk show of a band that he enjoyed, a great band out of Florida called Against Me. And the Toronto shows were all 19 and up. And I found one in Kitchener. And I called a friend from Kitchener and told him where the show was. And he said, "Are you mental? Like, you're not going to take your kid to that place. There's shootings there," and which was all myth. But to see my kid relate in that exact same way to the show, to the energy of the show, to I've used the term before, but that mule kick to the chest from the bass drum, and just that energy. It's liquid, and it's just an incredible experience. So it's just a great, it's a great thing. Now, my parents didn't take me to any punk shows, but at different times.
Absolutely.
Hey, you were talking about how your dad pretty much forced his likes on you, and so you guys were old enough to have your Sony Walkman. And how about with your kids? A conscious effort to say, you got to listen to this album. This is my favorite album. Would they take to that, or is it a more subtle approach? Did you think about it at all, or just let them do their thing? But I think there's a lot of music in your house, and also like cottages, and you've got that guitar going all the time. Like, did they follow your lead, or how did that work?
Yeah, kids have a mind of their own, and just as I did, I suppose. So music is always going in my house, always. Maybe even annoyingly so to some who aren't used to that, but there was always music going on, and so my kids have just had that. But I've never said, you should sit down and listen to this. I might just say, hey, you might like this group, or you might like this song or something, but I just have it on. And now it's, now that they're 18, 16, and 13, it's interesting how, similar to how I cottoned on to some of the things that my dad played and other things I didn't, it's now turned out that my kids are the same way. But the difference is music is so accessible now that it's just easy for them to say, hey, can I jump in on that and put my own song on Spotify now? can we get in the car? Immediately, both of my girls will immediately, as soon as we get in the car, say, can we play our music? Now, that was really exceptionally painful until they got to be 12 or 13, because all they wanted to listen to from the age of 3 to 13 was top 40. And I can't stand top 40. It's painful. And that's all they wanted. And so it's been this amazing musical journey to watch them progress out of that. Start saying, hey, Dad, can you play that album that you play that I like? To, hey, Dad, can you play this album that I play that you like? To just play this. I don't care if you like it. This is my new band, and hopefully you will like it. And they're just off in all directions. And it's so different music today in terms of how even I'm into a lot of new music. I don't all that often. I probably only 20% of the time I might listen to old stuff. I am constantly listening to the new stuff. But it's just how you consume music is so different today, because there's a gazillion bands out there and you have access to all of them, and there's all these playlists. So you just put random playlists on and you find the songs you like and you slap them into your own playlist, and then you listen to your own playlist as opposed to listening to albums. Whereas when we grew up, it was albums and maybe best ofs, and you'd listen to those greatest hits, right? And now my kids don't, they might have 2 or 3 artists that they listen to consistently. That's it. And everything else is just like 50 songs from artists that they probably couldn't even name that just like the song.
Have you come across a record, song, piece of music that they have put on that you have put on when they're not around? Something you actually liked, and you would cite them as your influence for finding it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not yet quite gotten to the point of putting on what they would listen to, but the closest I've come is probably Harry Styles, who is incredible. And I will say to my daughter when she's around, hey, why don't you play Harry? Because he's just amazing, and I've learned some of his songs on guitar. And the other is Billie Eilish, who both of my girls are huge fans of. And again, very happy to have her on whenever they're around. But I don't know that I've actually gotten to the point of listening to them to any of my kids' music. When they're like, they have playlists on my Spotify, I won't play their playlists. What I did do a couple of times is come up with playlists of songs that they like and I like. So all the songs that they like, and then I will go through all of them and I'll pick out the ones that I like, and we'll create a family playlist. And now that's safe to absolutely play on the boat when we're out cruising around or at the cottage or whatever. And that's really fun to do, but I still won't listen to it if they're not around.
It's very democratic.
It is.
I guess I have tried to be that way. Maybe I'm just trying to go a different direction as my dad, but which, and I don't resent my dad for it at all. I hope it doesn't sound like I do. It was that's how it was. And I probably, I heard way too much opera than I'd ever want to hear, but it was good to be exposed to things I otherwise wouldn't be.
Hey, you were talking about always having music on in the house. Do you actually sit down, like I was telling Chris, I have a great friend, Tim McDermott, who every night he sits down, he has the most killer system on the couch in front of the system, and will actually consciously listen to an entire side of an album. That is it, not to be interrupted by anyone. His family understands this, and they're quite into it too. But do you actually consciously put on an album and say, not interrupted, listening to every song?
I've only done that once in 25 years, and that was sitting on your couch, Brad, listening to Dire Straits on your turntable when you weren't home. So, and that's how I rediscovered vinyl.
Please tell me it was Love Over Gold. Please.
No. And I haven't done it since. I hadn't done it before in years, but it was that sound from vinyl that I had lost and forgotten. Was you feel it in your bones. And I actually sat there drinking a beer out of your fridge, Brad, and when you were home, and just enjoyed this experience, and didn't do anything. I wasn't reading a book. I wasn't watching TV. I wasn't talking to a friend. I was just sitting there. But otherwise, no, I'm always doing something. I'm always cleaning, I'm cooking, I'm working, I'm talking to somebody. I'm my brain doesn't work that way. I have to have a little more stimulation than just listening to music.
Do you back to the roots of that? Do you connect certain music to a time and place? Obviously, you may have Nana Muscuri or Roger Whittaker whistling in the mountains in the Alps as you tried to crawl up the hill in your Volkswagen bus. But is there a band? Let's say from the Ottawa days. Is there a band that every time you hear it, you connect exactly to a time and a place, be it Ottawa, be it Kingston, or other? I mean, is there just one that grabs you and instantly you where you heard it or the place that you associate the music with?
So certainly Bob Dylan and driving through Europe in the van as a kid always comes rushing back. And then the other band that probably I associate with something in particular is the Tragically Hip. And as you guys, may recall, that the Tragically Hip were, just a bar band when we got to Queens in, circa 1986. And they were a band that I hated. Every time you went to a bar and they were on the billboard outside, saying Tragically Hip tonight, I'd be encouraging everyone to turn around and leave for two reasons. One, when the Hip were playing, A, it was too loud to talk to girls, and B, you couldn't dance. You couldn't dance with music. You couldn't dance with girls. If you can't dance with a girl and you can't talk to a girl, what's the point in being in there? So I'd be telling everyone, let's leave. And so I hated the Hip.
It was ideal for me and Chris because we had no game. So we're like, this is perfect. No excuses.
I was just about to say, that's exactly why I went to see bands, because there wasn't going to be any girls anyway. So I may as well go check.
There's beer and no girls, so who cares, right? Yeah. Well, I was a little shallower back then, I guess. So it was off to the Kokomo for me or whatever. But I resented the Hip, during those years, because they seemed to be ubiquitous. It was like every time you turn around, the freaking Hip were there. And so for a lot of years, even when they came out with Up to Here, I just refused to listen to them. But someone finally pushed me to give them a shot. I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, you really need to sit down and listen to this band. And I finally gave them a shot, and they're top 5 band, maybe 3 in my life for sure.
Was that fully completely time, or was it before that?
It was probably Road Apples time, but I discovered Up to Here first, and then Road Apples, and but it was probably early 90s that I finally decided to give them a chance. And so when you talk about taking you back to a time, by the time I got to playing with the Alouettes in 1996, I had a routine, and from 96 till I retired in 2001, before every game, I listened to the Tragically Hip, only the Hip. From the time I woke up to the time I went to the stadium, it was the Hip and nothing but the Hip all day long as I psyched myself up to get ready for the game. So it really brings me back to those days. I used to love those days. I mean, when you're playing professional football, game day is sacred. There's nothing to do all day long until you have to get to the stadium at 5 o'clock, or if you have an afternoon game, you get in there at 11, but most of the games are at night. You have nothing to do other than just relax. You're supposed to get off your feet. You're just supposed to do a lot of mental visualization and listen to music. And for me, it was nothing but the Hip.
So that leads me to something I thought about and I needed to ask you. And there's an old adage that says athletes only want to be musicians. Musicians only want to be athletes. A, I want to know if that's true, and B, having had your foot in both bits of water on that, I want to know which side you relate most to. I'd like to know because you do love music, you play very well, and I'd like to know, do you relate to music as the athlete who wants to be a musician, or the musician who connects more to athletics?
Oh, I definitely am a wannabe rock star, and wannabe is the operative word. I mean, when you're playing professional sports, you obviously realize you've reached sort of the top of the game, right? And we made decent money to entertain a lot of people. No one ever paid to watch me entertain anybody musically, but the idea of that was absolutely thrilling. Like the idea that someone would pay to come watch me play. And so I was actually really, really lucky, because I got to live the rock star experience without having to have a lot of talent. because it became known, particularly when I was in Montreal, it became known all around town that I played guitar. And whenever I was in a bar and there was a live band up there, somebody would invariably tell the band, Jock Climie's here and he plays guitar, and they would call me up on stage. And I've had this amazing experience of, getting up there, and they throw a guitar on me and they whisper in my ear, what do you know how to play? And I rhyme off a few that I knew, or, this one, yeah, I can play along to that. And then I got to just be a rock star for one or two songs in front of, sometimes it was 5 people, sometimes it was 500, sometimes it was like a couple times it was like thousands. I remember going on stage and being pulled up on stage by the Blushing Brides. Remember those guys?
Yeah. Stones cover band.
Yeah, the Stones cover band. And Crescent Street in Montreal was shut down for a concert with these guys. It was thousands of people. And they pulled me up on stage, and I got to be a rock star for like 2 songs. So that's absolutely what I have wanted to be and wished I could be. And I've known other professional athletes who feel the same way. So there's no question there are lots of athletes who want to be rock stars, and I've met lots of rock stars who would call me up on stage, or I'd meet backstage, who would say the same thing to me. All I want to do is catch a pass in front of thousands of people. And so we always want what we don't have, right?
Exactly.
Hey, locker rooms. I remember at Queen's locker room, there was music, but was it someone just bringing a cassette? And I can't even remember like really anything. Was there someone who controlled that room? And what I really want to know is, when you're a young athlete, a young professional, just trying to not be too noticed, fit in with the older guys and the veterans. That transition, do you get any say in the music? Who controlled the locker room? And when did you get to control the locker room? As a veteran?
I never did. So it was actually a fascinating social experiment to figure out, how are you going to bring these disparate groups together. So we're talking about Black Americans from the South, Black Americans from the North, white Americans from the South, white Americans from the North, Black Canadians, white Canadians, and Francophones. And you put them all into one locker room, tell them to be a team, tell them they all got to get along, tell them they all got to win football games together. And oh, by the way, there's one stereo system, so figure it out. And it was a battle, and not a pleasant one to witness. I mean, you'd have hardcore rap going on, and then the next second, some 300-pound lineman would say, "Enough of that," and go in there and slap some country music in there. And then some, hillbilly from Alabama would go there and say, "I want to see ZZ Top," and they, then it would change. And it was a power dynamic as to who would get to play what they wanted to play. And you risked every time you put something in there, you'd risk someone going, "What the hell is that?" And so, if I'm not putting Bob Dylan on in the CFL locker room, like, that's not happening. I'll be ridiculed by absolutely everybody. So I and I obviously liked other bands, but even if I wanted the Counting Crows or, Bare Naked Ladies or something, like, you risked ridicule. But if you put some hardcore rap song or some, total country song on, or some rock song, hardcore rock, no one's going to laugh at you, right? Because it's still appropriate for a football locker room. And frankly, the type of music that was appropriate for football locker room, I was never into. So I just went along with it.
Nice. I want to know who, you've had the professional football guys, the broadcasting guys, the school guys, the legal career guys. I want to know about somebody who surprised you, someone who pulled a rabbit out of the hat, somebody who you absolutely were blown away by something musical that they introduced to you, something that they mentioned to you, a nugget of knowledge that they knew. I mean, someone that you least expected to come up with something that you said, right on, that's, something you pursued, or just, I like the, I like the mystery of someone just coming out and blowing you away with an idea and influence a group. And it's more interesting if it's somebody that you completely didn't expect. Have you come across, in any of those realms, someone who you least thought would pull that one out?
Well, my children would fit into that category for sure. I never thought my children would introduce me to anything that I thought was interesting or I didn't already know, and they have. But I guess in terms of musical influences, I wouldn't have thought that the guys I lived with in university are going to introduce me to music that I don't already like. But living with that group of guys that Brad's included in was that experience, because every day there's somebody bringing something to the table, bringing a band that you'd never heard of. And again, it's so different back then. This is before Spotify. This is before Napster. If you're going to discover music, you probably haven't heard it on the radio. You've probably heard it at some other guy's house, and you've probably borrowed his tape. And if you liked it, you made a copy of the tape, and then you forced your roommates to listen to it. And you risk ridicule if you play something that everybody thinks is stupid. And so all that has to happen before you can kind of go, wow, that's really cool. And I remember our house was full of stuff like Tears for Fears and Beautiful South and Squeeze and Style Council and Andrew Cash and Prefab Sprout and bands like that I wouldn't have found them on my own. The two big albums for me in first year university, the two albums I wore out because they came out right at the same time, was Peter Gabriel's So and Paul Simon's Graceland. I just had those two ping-ponging back and forth day in, day out. And then I moved in with this group of 5 other guys, and now I'm being exposed to all this other music. And that probably set me on my my musical journey, because everyone was so passionate about it.
Nice.
It's funny. It makes me think of that as keeping a cassette tape at that time too long. And I remember, being in love with Tamsin, who lived across the street from us, and she introduced me to the Stranglers, and I love that. And yet I didn't want to give it back, so I avoided her for a week.
That sort of stuff was definitely happening. And then you lost friendships over people who wouldn't give your tape back, especially the mixtapes that you slaved over.
Oh, labors of love.
Hey, well, it would be a disservice not to mention, because I think your connection with Robbie, who you found later in life after you found your birth mom, and then you found Robbie, your cousin, that you had never met before, and Robbie's a professional musician, and you guys had a crazy connection right from the get-go. And it might have been other things, but I think music was a huge part of that. And I'd love for you to talk about that in terms of is that your strongest musical connection with anyone? And part of it's probably the introduction of different music and this and that, but you guys play, and I don't know, it's a magical connection. When I'm around, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to take a back seat here, because these guys are just going to go in their own little world, and I love it. It's great. So I just love for you to talk about, how your life changed with Robbie.
Yeah, I'll never forget my introduction to Robbie, because I first found my birth mother, as you mentioned, back in 1998. So I was 27 or so, and I called her up, and after a long search, and we got the introduction, and so we started with a phone call, and we talked for 3 hours the first night. And in that call, she kept on bringing up this cousin of mine named Robbie Driscoll, who she said, I'm going to love. And, when someone constantly hypes somebody else, it could be the kiss of death. But she kept on saying, oh my God, you sound alike. I've seen your picture. You look alike. He's you, but white. So anyway, the same thing I found out later was happening to him. Everyone was saying, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy. So out of more because of pressure from the family, Robbie came up to Montreal and was playing for the Alouettes to spend a weekend with me. So here's a guy, 22 years old, going to visit a long lost cousin who's 27 that plays pro football that he's never met before. And he gets off the train, and I pick him up, and now we're thrust together, and we're expected. Everyone in this new family of mine expects us to hit it off. And he doesn't know a thing about sports. He's never watched a football game in his life. He's like a fish out of water. But he's just come off of spending 2 years trying to make a go of it as a professional musician in a rock band. and he's finally given up the dream and decided to go back to school. And anyway, you're absolutely right, Brad. Music was our instant connection, and to this day, it still is. I mean, you know, we're obviously capable of relating on other planes, but it always comes back to music. It's what we talk about, you know, every time we speak, and then, you know, playing together, writing songs together, recording songs together. Through this pandemic, my daughter and I have started writing songs together and recording them and sending the tracks to him, and he'll put bass and drums and send them back. And I'll say, Kate, can you change the bass part? Can you add a background vocal to this, or change the drums? And we'll send the files back and forth till we get a song. All this is born from those early days when we first got together, when we were recording songs on my 4-track in my attic till 3 a.m. drinking scotch. And, you know, so that's how music, how it runs so deep. But it's been really interesting to see somebody whose musical tastes are similar, but not identical. So he's introducing me to stuff that I wouldn't otherwise know, and I'm doing the same for him. And I'm always proudest that I introduced him to Elliott Smith before he ever heard of him. And that's Elliott Smith is still, you know, one of his favorites of all time and one of mine. And he's introduced me to bands that even he's passed on, but I haven't, like the Weepies. You know, he introduced me to them, and they're one of my favorite bands. And he kind of had a little moment with them and kind of passed along. But we're constantly feeding music back and forth to each other. He loves Spoon. That's, you know, one of his favorites. And so I wouldn't have discovered Spoon if it wasn't for him. So, you know, constantly having somebody expose you to different things is fantastic.
Hey, you touched on creating music with your daughter, and I have a confession, because you sent me that one song that mind-blowing, that she wrote and you guys put together, and her voice, and I thought her words were amazing. And last week I shared it with Chris, told him not to share it any further, but that's pretty cool. What's your connection? Like, when did that happen? Did it take Robbie for that to happen, you know, for the three of you, for her, and was it her that pressed the issue? Was it you? Like, how did that kind of come to be? Because it's pretty special now. Like, I think we were talking a while ago, it doesn't happen as often as you maybe like, but when it does, geez, she brings it, and you guys it's magical.
Yeah, well, thanks. So by the time she was, I don't know, 6 or 7, we realized that she could sing pretty well. And then by the time she was 11, I thought she might have something special. So I started, I mean, the first thing I think I played was a Justin Bieber song, and Love Yourself, and she sang along to that. And so I decided I'm going to start recording this. So every time we learn a song together, I'd put the phone down and put the video on and just record the two of us playing and singing it. And I've got like dozens of these songs now over the last 5 years that we've done together. And so, you know, whenever I heard a song that I thought she'd sing well and I could play, or she heard a song that she thought she could sing and I could play, we would record this song. And then probably about 3 years ago, she's 16 now. She was probably 13 or 14. I had written a song, music like with guitar, but I couldn't figure out a melody. I had lyrics, but the guitar was actually more complex than I normally do, and I'm not that talented. And I thought she might be, and I just said, "Hey, can you come up with a melody to this?" And she came up with a melody that frickin' blew my socks off, and effortlessly. Like it took her no time to come up with something that I struggled and couldn't come up with anything. And so we recorded the song. So with my guitar, you know, composition and words, and her melody. And so I try to use that to say, hey, why don't you try, you know, coming up with something. And I said, you need to learn an instrument. So I got our ukulele for Christmas, and she started plunking away on that, and then piano a little bit. And so then she wrote a song about my divorce with her mother, my ex. And she sat down with a ukulele and said, what do you think of the song? I've just written it. And she played the song that if I didn't realize I needed to be tough and stoic, I'd be bawling. She played it for my ex-wife, and she bawled. Like, it was like, I'll have to send it to you. It's one of the most incredible pieces of music I've ever heard. But it's obviously poignant. It's written from the standpoint of a 15-year-old and seeing her parents, you know, fall in love and then divorce. And then, you know, COVID hit, and that was really the impetus to say, hey, let's get into this. And Robbie we got a professional musician at our disposal. It's not like I'm just tinkering around trying to figure out how to use GarageBand here. We got someone who can play it all. He can play guitar, he can play piano, he can play bass, and he can put it up, and he knows how to use all the software. And so I got her into it, and she, we probably did 2 or 3 songs that way, and then she got to be a typical teenager, and it's just like, Netflix is more important, and talking to her friends is more important, and so it's been a bit of a struggle to get her into that. But I just, she's in a musical theater program, and she does a lot of music at school, and playing music with her dad isn't quite so cool anymore. I think she had, when she's 15, it was fun, and then it's just kind of like, yeah. And now she says, Dad, like, I can't do an album with you and Robbie. Like, that's just stupid. That's not cool. I got to do my own thing. I'm like, what could be cooler than an album with your uncle and your dad? She doesn't see it that way, unfortunately.
I think they call that good parenting. If she has the gumption to point the ship in her own direction, then you have done more than a capable job in terms of introducing her to music, doing it with her, which I'm sure is magic, and I get to do that a bit in my house too. And but I think there has to be satisfaction in her saying that, and she's not doing it to be mean.
She's always careful to say, I'm not gonna hurt your feelings, Dad. I just gotta do my own thing. I'm like, okay.
She's ready to do her own thing.
Yeah. But one of the really fun things is I now can pull her in now, because I decided I'm going to start sort of recording some of my old songs that I wrote years ago. I was like, I got all this time on my hands. Like, why not use Robbie? Let's record some old stuff, and then I'll get her to sing backup. So I'll say, hey, honey, can you come over here and help me with this harmony? And she's fully down with that. Like, and because she can do. I can't come up with a harmony to save my life. She can do it in 5 seconds, and like these beautiful harmonies. So we've been doing some of that too, which is fun.
So the deal is, it's like, if you ask for help, that's the gateway.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. If I ask for cooperation or collaboration, not so much, but honey, can you please help me? Your old dad's a bit of an idiot. He needs help. She's there to the rescue.
That's all I had to say. Dad's an idiot.
You may have revealed the secret that could sell 1 million books, Jock. I mean,
something
turning this podcast into a self-help parenting course.
I could use some self-help.
Hey, a few things about your creative process, because I've known you, there's ups and downs in terms of, like, life is great, life isn't great, be it professionally, be it personally. And I, just like many artists, you said a long time ago, I wonder if this is still true, but you're like, I can't create anything unless I'm depressed. When things are going good, I have got nothing to produce, and is that still the same? Like, because I know you're creating stuff with your daughter and Robbie, and going through some old stuff. So are you depressed now?
Yeah, no, that's probably why I haven't written much. I mean, I've probably written from scratch 3 songs in the last 5 years. And I used to do that in a week, when, I was, 20s angst, trying to figure out where life is going, and you get fat and happy, and it's just, it's a different deal. But without a doubt, and I see it in artists all the time, right? You just see it in artists. They're never at their best, other than when they just had their heart broken, or they're strung out in drugs, or whatever, and they get successful, and they get rich, and they get fat, and they get happy, and their music just dries up. And the true artists, I shouldn't say the true artists, the real brilliant artists are the ones that can continue to create great music despite the ups and downs in their lives. It's because they have songwriting down to a craft. Right, like Don Mayer is a guy that I think of in those terms, right? Like he can't write a bad song. Donovan Woods is the same way. They can't write a bad song because they figured out songwriting as almost like a science. It's not like this inspiration that wells up in them when things are just terrible and it comes pouring out of them. They can sit down and like take their pen out and their paper and say, I'm going to work, put their hard hat on, and come up with a magical song. And there aren't that many artists in the world, as far as I'm concerned, that can do that. I think a lot of artists are just, it's just their emotion and whatever's going on in their lives. It creates this inspiration that comes pouring out of them.
I was just thinking about this the other day in terms of, I tried to write, and, I was quite into that, but I also, when I would always read something like that would get me in the mood to write. I'd always read David Sedaris because that for some reason I just clicked with him, and that was like the style that I wanted to write. And then I watched Hip Hop Evolution, and I'm stealing this, is Timberland and Missy Elliott worked together on her first album. They made sure they did not listen to radio. They just wanted to be inside their heads, create a future sound, create something, and zero outside influences. I'm wondering for you, is there something that you listen to, you go, okay, I'm in that place? And, as an athlete, you already said you listened to the hip for like 5 years in a row before a game, and that got you into the mode of like, okay, I'm super focused. For creating music, is there a couple albums that you'll kind of ease into in that week and you go, okay, I'm ready now?
I won't specifically listen to music before writing something, but I can listen to something that will make me want to write something. So, probably the two artists that do that most, I've already mentioned them, are Bob Dylan and John Mayer. Like I will just be sitting doing something and have them on, and now think, all I want is to be able to write a song half as good as that one. And then that will get me thinking, why don't I try? Like, and it might evoke Bob Dylan with his lyrics and John Mayer with his melodies and his guitar will make me think, let me just try something that's even, close to that. And John Mayer is this incredible guitar player who cannot write a song that just has simple chords, right? I mean, I can play a lot of songs. I can't play any of his songs because he refuses to sit down and write a song that's just got G, C, and D. He refuses because he's too good a guitar player. And I've heard him interviewed. He says he'll just get bored. If he's not doing something really complicated that sounds simple, he won't do it. So a lot of his songs are like poppy and very accessible. And yet the guitar playing, it's like, I can't play it. And I can play most guys' stuff. And Bob Dylan lyrically, there's no one on the planet like him in terms of where he can take you and what you feel when you hear his words. And so it is about that inspiration of like, that just makes me want to write something.
Time has to be a factor too. You don't seem to have a ton of time on your hands. Busy parent, busy professional. Your friends take up an extraordinary amount of your time.
Not as much during COVID. So
exactly.
I really feel like I have less of an excuse now, and I wish I was doing more of it. As I said, I sort of more focused on my daughter and her writing and then recording old songs and the recording process, learning a new software. I mean, learning this software has been really interesting. And it's hard to do. And it's hard to learn how to record successfully, right? To do, it's one thing to just pick up your guitar and play a song that you've written. It's another thing to figure out how to play along to a click track, and then how to weave, put layers on top of that. And so that's been really fun. And then I do hope, I really do hope that I will get back into writing. It's something that's in the back of my head that, it's funny, I keep trying to figure out how come you don't see many artists in their 50s and 60s who are writing hit songs anymore? And I've been trying to figure that out. And is it because they've already written too many hit songs, they don't have any more in them? Is it because nobody wants to hear what a 50 or 60-year-old has to say? Or is it because your creative genius, dries up by then? But I do want to start writing again. It's not like I've ever written any great songs, but I've written songs that I've been proud of, and I'm thinking, hey, could I still do it? I don't know. How
therapeutic is the process for you?
It's a way to get lost, right? It really is and it's a way to nourish the soul. Is I guess how I feel about it. I just wish I was better at it. I mean, that's probably why I don't do it more. Especially now, right? You just all you got to do is go on Spotify and put on your playlist on, and you gotta listen to a 50-song playlist. There won't be a single artist you've ever heard of before, and every song's amazing. And not only are the songs amazing, but the recording process and the instrumentation and the musicianship is unbelievable. It's like, oh, I'm not competing with those people. Like these people, there's like a zillion of them out there now. And so I get, you have to give up on that. You have to forget about trying to compete with them. You just have to do it because you love it, right?
I don't think, I don't think getting to that level is the point. it's being happy and accomplished and even getting to a point where you'd want to play your music for someone. That's a win in itself.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Is to say, and for me, it's actually occasionally I'll be in the car. I'm like, I wouldn't mind playing some of my old songs or playing some of my daughter's songs. And when I'm happy to just drive in my car and listen to my old stuff and that I've played or recorded, or I'm like, if I'm happy to hear it. I remember hearing an artist. I remember with Paul McCartney or somebody said that. It's like if you're happy to listen to your own stuff, then then you've done something well. Whereas you cringe every time you hear your old stuff, then that's a bad sign. So you're right, that is the goal. And my kids love it and they sing along to my songs, and my girlfriend loves it and she sings along to my songs, and that's reward enough.
Nice. Hey, we're not going to take up too much more of your time. This has been fun. I learned a lot too. Jeez Louise. I got one question, and this, for the viewers at home. Jock loves asking us questions, theoretical questions. What if you could in this situation? What would you do? Blah, blah, blah. I'm interested, and this can be 3 different people, 3 different artists. But if you were to choose someone, a band, an artist, that you would, one of them, be backstage and see their concert. The second one, have dinner with. And the third one, party with. What does that look like to you?
Well, the artist I've always wished I could have seen backstage, front of stage, whatever, would be Michael Jackson, without a doubt. I mean, I don't recall if we had a chance to see him. We probably did, right? I mean, yeah. He probably toured.
Yeah, Victory Tour in Toronto, played Toronto and Montreal, and that would have been in late 80s.
But it was Jock in Germany at the time.
No, late 80s, we were a Queen. I vaguely remember him being in Montreal and Toronto. Yeah.
Toronto.
So, yeah. So definitely that. And in terms of having dinner with, probably Paul Simon. He fascinates me. There's a guy who's written great music over decades and decades, and must have lived quite a life, right? Mm-hmm. Like the life he's lived. He has some stories to tell. And what was the third category?
Party with.
Party. Ooh, that's a good question. Probably.
And you could be present day Jock or a younger version of Jock.
Yeah, probably. I was going to say Sam Roberts, but I have partied with him. Really loves that guy, and I just had a chance to hang out with him, drink beers, which was great. I love Canadian rock artists. I had some beers with the Tragically Hip after an album concert, which was amazing too. So that would they would have been on my list, and then I did it.
Did you tell them how much you hated them?
I didn't actually. But Robbie Baker.
If I saw their name on a marquee, I'd walk away and make everyone go to Kokomo.
I should have told him that. But Robbie Baker, actually, I think I got in because the manager recognized me and I was in line, and we got in and hung out with him backstage. And Robbie Baker had actually been interviewed during a CFL game, and he was asked if he's a CFL fan. And this is a lead guitarist for the Tragically Hip, and he said, "I'm not really a CFL fan, but I just follow Queen football players like Jock Climie. That's really all I'm a fan of."
No doubt.
And I just about fell off my chair. So I went up to him and said, like, "You're my hero, and this is incredible." So to party with, probably, who I'd love to party with is Josh Ritter. That guy, I love his music, and I just got a feeling like he'd be a pretty cool guy to hang out and have some beers with.
When you were answering this, I was thinking, who would you not want to risk meeting? Risk spending some time with, because, I was thinking Paul Simon, because you have a feeling he's going to be fascinating. You have a feeling you're going to talk about great stuff because he's done so much work in addition to his music. But you're like, God damn it, I don't want to risk this.
Bob Dylan fits in that category. I didn't, despite the fact that he's right at the top of my list. I don't want to meet him because he's just, I suspect he's just going to disappoint me. Like he's never he's never better than when he's singing on an album, right? You can't get better than that. And I've seen some interviews with him, and he's, it looks like he's got a bit of an edge to him, and I've read a couple of biographies, and he's been a bit of a jerk in his life, and so I don't want anything to ruin that mystique.
Chris, you got anything else for our friend Jock?
I got to tell you, we covered more bases than I thought we were going to cover, and this has been great, Jock. Great to see you again in person. I'd like to redo a trip to Nashville with you someday.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely.
When the smoke clears, it'll be great to see you again in person.
It's been fun,
Jock,
guys.
Jock, I have the parting question that everyone gets is the whole idea of this. We're making you a mixtape. We're making the Jock mixtape off what we've learned, and we'll have our fun with that. But what's the style of mixtape you want? Like previous guest, our friend Tim, asked for a road trip tape. What are you in the mood for? What would you like to see us try and pull off?
Well, what I don't need is that kind of mellow vibe thing, and it's going on in the background when I'm working, or just have some guests over and you see some music in the background. I've got like a ton of that. I do find it hard to get a playlist together of up tempo, get you hyped, get you excited, get you wanting to have a few beers and maybe do a little dancing. And I was like, my guilty pleasure is disco. I mean, I lived through that in the late 70s, and that was one of my, I wouldn't say that I wasn't going out, I bought the Village People. That was one of the first albums I bought, now that I think of it. It's not that I liked them, but they were the cool thing. But I was affected by the disco sucks thing, right? Like the disco sucks movement killed disco for me. And I've only recently, like in the last 20 years, said that was stupid. Like that whole disco sucks thing was wrong, and it doesn't suck. It was great, and it still is great. And yeah, so it's like, yeah, I hear the Bee Gees and it just gets me going. So, something up tempo, that's going to get me in a good mood. That'd be pretty cool to have.
Okay. I think we played it out in my house once before of dinner's over, and that's when I got the nasty note from my neighbor that we kept her up all night long. And there was
one of those playlists. The nasty note from the neighbor playlist. That's what we'll call it.
That's a good
neighbor
one.
side A and B.
Well, my friend, love it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for taking me down this musical memory lane. It's been incredible.
All right, and the self-help parenting book is on the way. And just remember, you need help, and you're an idiot, and your daughter's gonna love creating stuff with you as long as you establish that every day.
Fantastic.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm gonna get out of here. Ciao, ciao.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, see you.
Well, our friend Jock gave us a nice little curveball. He gave us a lot of mellow bands. And then at the end, he asked us to make him a playlist that would be upbeat and super fun. So we did our best. And here we go. Chris and I are going to tell you what we came up with for Jock's upbeat playlist. Right.
That was a good,
All right.
that was a good, that was a great talk with Jock. He completely threw us a curveball by asking for an up. he asked for, give me a hype mix with no hype song references or music references. So
I know I'm a pretty fun guy, but here's what I like, and good luck with that. Jesus, it's such a Jock move. Really.
It created a challenge, and I did enjoy digging up some, exhuming some shells of references and things that I could throw in there. So let's have at it.
Right on. All right. Well, I started with Drive My Car, Beatles. He mentioned the Rubber Soul album. I think it's the first track off of it. And I have a confession. I'm not a big Beatles fan. I know that everyone's going to hate me, but they've just never been that awesome for me.
That's my dirty secret is that I share that with you. I've never been a Beatles guy, and I think the cornerstone of my Beatles issue has absolutely nothing to do with the music, the production, anything like that. It's the fact that they played live about 80 times in their whole career.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm a stickler for the live performance. And I think that's why. I mean, I grew up with the records in my house. There's no question about that. But it just never grabbed me.
yeah. And half of those, if you said they played 80 times, 10, 12, 15 of those times they were pulled off the stage in 15 minutes because the screaming was too much, and they're like, we can't hear ourselves, we can't do anything, and it became sketchy. Like, I'm sure the security wasn't amazing.
No, the audio, or what the traceable audio from Candlestick Park in San Francisco, that show, with no monitors, and they're only playing through Vox amps. It's just a disaster. I don't know how they even got through a song because you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the time, obviously. And without them, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of other music happening. So hats off to that. But everything about how I feel about the Beatles is related to the fact that they were around for a very short period of time, and in that short period of time, they played very few live shows.
Yeah. And it would have been interesting. Well, who
They're
knows?
a great
Like,
studio band.
Right time, right place. Because
Sure.
when you watch that Bee Gees documentary, it's like they weren't that different. They were kind of the it group, and then the Beatles kind of beat them to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, what's your first tune? What do you want to throw at me?
I skipped the Beatles because I wanted to defer that to I knew you were going to lob a good one. I took a stab at his Dylan reference, and I enjoyed that we cut him off at the pass in terms of saying, look, Jock, there's going to be no talking about Dylan. So so many great artists have covered Dylan and done such a good job of it. I wanted to go with a cover tune, and I really like Michael Franti's cover of Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's short, it's to the point, it's and it gets going. It picks up the pace nicely in the song, covers the required material, and I like it. I was drawn to it, and not being a Dylan guy. Can you believe in the same 5 minutes I've said I'm not a big Beatles guy, and I'm not really a Dylan guy. So that's good. I'm probably not going to open any parcels on my front door for a while, but that's the one I went with because it's great. It's a good.
Well, I think the biggest Dylan gift is that he gave us the band. He hosed the band and let them create.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, now with Subterranean Homesick Blues, I don't think you know this because you were not at Tim and Jocelyn's wedding.
I was not.
Okay.
No.
Here's the beautiful part about you selecting that song is that Jock couldn't go to the wedding because he was in football training camp, and you can't get out of training camp. I don't think, no matter how veteran you are, but he wasn't veteran. But so he made a song for Tim and Jocelyn, recorded it on VHS. His older brother was a film guy. Jock is standing on the side of the road with placards.
No.
The same video that Bob Dylan made for this song.
So good.
Jock did for Tim and Jocelyn. I know. So when I saw this, I'm like, God damn, that's the video. I looked up, I'm like, oh my God, how freaking perfect is this?
That's fantastic.
I know.
That was a Vancouver wedding?
That was the Vancouver wedding. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we had VHS, and we had I don't think we could hook up a speaker system. It was very low tech. So we were crowded around a little TV the entire wedding, watching this over and over again.
Good on him.
Yeah. And Jock actually said he doesn't know any huge Police fans, and I should have interjected because I went with Regatta de Blanc. Bring on the Night. Bring on the Night. It's such a reggae song, It's Absolutely. Just got that reggae little lilt to it, and I should have said to him that I said previously, because we were talking to Tim the previous week, that my friend Hamayan is the biggest Police fan. He's like, I don't think there's any big Police fans out there. I'm like, I disagree.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of big Police fans out there, a lot of Sting fans, but I think there's a lot of people like older people, you know, our age, maybe even 10 years younger, whatever, that they really like the Police. And I just remember it's like I think early high school, like grade 9, when Synchronicity came out, and that was massive. But yeah, this is Regretted Blonde. I think it's one of my favorite albums. So,
Yep,
you know, so
absolutely.
that's yeah.
No, that's a
What
great,
do you-
that's a great kicker. I
Yeah.
He talked about his European experience, and I think I threw out the 99 Luftballons, and I think it needs to be in there because I think it holds up. It has all of the Euro qualities of a great pop song, and it is highly reminiscent of first year residence for me in Ottawa, and both versions, English and in German, were big hits.
I know.
So I had to throw that one into my list, because it seems to fit in his European experience at the time.
And in the German version, she still said everyone's a Captain Kirk. So
That's right.
Captain Kirk translated perfectly. So that's
Yeah.
all. I felt like I could speak a little German after that experience. Genesis, Turn It On Again.
Okay.
And I think that appeals to the music geek in him, just because the fact that it's a weirdo song. Like, it changes tempo. Like, every time I listen to that song, there's one juncture in it where you kind of go, did it almost skip? You know, like they switch it up. It almost stops and starts again, and it's all over the place. And I don't know. It's just a good. Genesis had a fair number of songs that you could get going to, but I don't know. That one definitely appeals to me. And I think he mentioned Genesis, like it's off that album. So I think I think I was actually listening to Jock.
I'm one of these awful people who believes that Genesis ceased to exist when Gabriel left in the early 70s. So I'm not a fan of the Phil Collins era, but I can see why people like it. Super composition of the songs, super well produced, and great. I branched off in Jock's later, speaking about Peter Gabriel, in that
Mhm.
I threw out Biko,
Mhm.
because not just because of the politics of the song, but it's a haunting, beautiful song. I just love it. It's one that I absolutely turn to 11 every single time I hear it. I can't resist. I'm not saying it's a song to get amped up to. It's a terribly sad song, obviously, but for what it's worth, I threw that in there because I think it's awesome.
Well, as you should. Like, I mean, no matter how upbeat you want, you still need a chance to mix another drink. So that's kind of
That's
like
right.
the
So
interlude, the intermission.
have a good cry.
And then, you know, you gotta Scorpions. You know,
Oh.
you gotta put on the Scorpions one because it was mentioned in Lar. It was mentioned as one that he would throw on people request when he was DJ Jock, which cracks me up on many levels. Just envisioning the grade 8 Jock, grade 9 Jock.
At the
DJ.
youth center, you know, I'd pay for a picture from that era. I need to check the Climie family archives for a picture of him behind the turntables at the German youth club.
But I went on to there's a site that I went on to. I just wanted to pop up the lyrics for fun, and there were some comments below, and this is so good. The one guy says, "I love how 90% of Scorpion songs sound the same, and they're all awesome." Hey, if you're in, you're in. You're out, you're in. That's all so the way.
Good.
So we've done well with German representation with 99 Luftballons and Scorpions. What else? What else you got up your sleeve?
You know, he mentioned Sloan. You know, fantastic Canadian band. I've liked them for a long time. I think Money City Maniacs is a great tune. It has the siren in there. It's the air raid siren. It's got a great lead in. It's got a great thundering backbeat happening, and I think it's a cool song. I've always loved it, so I had to throw. He mentioned Sloan, I had to throw that one in there.
Well, you were paying attention, and the thing is, you are unintentionally creeping him, because the last time he was here in Vancouver, him and Robbie, they went to a Sloan concert.
Did they? No way. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, I should put Sloan on there, and I saw your pics. I'm like, perfect. We can. so you nailed Bob Dylan. You nailed Sloan. So, and then, one of his first awesome concerts, I think it was the second one, was in Ottawa, though, the U2 concert.
Right.
And any song that's this song is not a rebel song. There's
Sure.
What is it? There's too much talk, maybe too much talk about this
Sunday
next song.
Bloody Sunday.
Just the way that just starts, it's just like, all right, here we go. They give us a warning of like, okay, we're gonna rev it up, and I love that.
Yeah, that was the I was in Ottawa at the time, and caught that show as well, which was fantastic. The backup was, I think Dire Straits had Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I'm trying to remember who the supporting act for the U2 show was, but it was the Unforgettable Fire tour.
Yeah.
The Jock was referencing, and I pulled out for that. I pulled out "I Will Follow" because I just think that's a beauty that kicks.
Yeah. And that, I think that was a song about his mother, or
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
oh, maybe not his mother, but it was. I don't know. The lyrics are pretty deep on that one. And then, what I like is the process. I haven't created anything artistic in my entire life, but I like hearing about other people who can do stuff. And for Bryan Adams, Kids Want to Rock, and I like the story behind that, because him and his writing partner Jim Valance, I think is his name, they were recording. And then Brian wasn't too thrilled about the way recording was going. So they essentially took a week or a month off. They took a break, and they went and saw a show. And I think the show was decent. They went and had drinks afterwards and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not sure who it was, Jim or Brian, just said, it comes right down to it. The kids want to rock. And then he's like, we should get to the studio tomorrow. And they did it in one day. Yeah, exactly. So, you can plan and plan and plan, and then all of a sudden you just come up with that. It's like, I think we got something, so I'll see you tomorrow.
My immediate draw to Bryan Adams was the fact that he played a Rickenbacker 330, my favorite guitar of all time, my favorite sound, the Ricco sound. It's just it's a great sounding guitar, and he plays it, so that makes him all right by me. And I just went with the seminal Summer of '69 on that one, just because that's a beauty. But I think that you touched all the bases with Kids Want to Rock. That's one I didn't consider, and I should have. That's a beauty choice. That's a great one.
Have you seen Bryan Adams?
I have, many times. Yeah.
I only saw him the once. I saw him the once as he was the warm-up act for my Def Leppard concert in Detroit.
There you go.
Pyromania tour.
Wow.
We're like, okay, get out of the way. We're here to see Def Leppard. So it was a lot of disrespect there. Sorry.
Support acts are just I think that begs the question of amazing bands who were support acts who took a lot of crap during a show and went on to, virtually every band is going to do that, but it's funny to hear all these stories about bands just taking a ton of heat they don't deserve.
Well,
for people
which goes back to the whole Bob Dylan thing in the band. Like, they were about to tell him, it's like, we can't do this any longer. Like, we're not part of your acoustic to electric experiment. Right. Getting beer bottles thrown at us, just getting shit upon every night. And they're like, no, we want to do our own music. Bob, he breaks his back, and it's like, oh, fuck, we got out of that. And he's paying for us to live for a year. It's like, wow, we were just about to quit, and then the rest is history for them. I think we chose the same Sam Roberts song. Them Kids.
Yeah, that's just such a great song. It tells a great story. It makes a great statement. I just It's fantastic. They played at Homecoming in Kingston 2 years ago, and just outside where Jock Hardy used to be.
Yeah.
And late October, cool night, and they just absolutely ripped it up. It was a great show. Sam Roberts, just I think an understated Canadian act, and in many ways, like the Hip, it's just a band that seems to get a ton of traction domestically, and then just sputters a bit south of the border. Unless I'm missing something, it's just musically, lyrically, everything about the way the music's presented is top notch, and seems to me that they deserve a better shake than what they get.
Hey,
Sam,
it's 24 years today is when the Tragically Hip were on Saturday Night Live.
I saw that. I saw that feed with Dan Aykroyd with the doing the intro.
One of the ugliest Canada shirts of all time.
It was one of the ugly. I don't know what giant tiger he found that one at, but it had Mounties, I think, on it. It had CANADA. It was.
I know. You got to be a big man to pull that off, because
it honest to God, it looks like something you bought at the airport at the souvenir shop on the way in. It was just horrid.
I think you nailed it. I really do. And I saw it all the way through today. I was watching that video from Saturday Night Live, and the host of the show was John Goodman. So I'm sure it was a fun time that weekend.
That was a big night.
So yeah, I went with Twist My Arm, and it has that. I like songs that start with, like, it's a rocker song, but they start with a little guitar, and then let's hit the drums, and you're like, okay, we're about to go. So it's start with a guitar, and you're like, hold my beer, please. Like we're going somewhere. So
great choice.
And you were 38 years old, I think.
No. Actually, I went with the live version of New Orleans is Sinking.
Why did you do live?
Well, there's a couple live versions where Gordy has a beautiful diatribe that goes off in so many different directions, and like a tightrope walker who's just so far beyond the balancing point, at exactly the right moment in both of the versions that I love, he brings it back with a snap of a finger, right back in, and it's just, everything about it is magic about those two live versions. And it's a song that traditionally, when they played live, gave Gordy a vehicle to have a out of body experience and explore all kinds of interesting stories and things like that. And it's a great song because the band sits back in a groove and just lays it down over and over and over until everyone's convinced that Gordy's taken to where it is. And then in the, as I mentioned, snap of a finger, they're right back. And it's just, I love it. It blows my mind every time.
I don't know how many times he did it, but there was that one time he was the janitor in an aquarium. That's one of these short stories that he went off on. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and he broke. But how many times have we seen that live? And when he comes back, when he brings it around with a snap of the fingers, as you say, you're like, we're still on the song.
Oh, that's right. Because he takes you on a little journey, and he's that was a great gift of his. And a great gift he gave to us was the little journeys that he took. It was great.
Jock didn't mention. I don't think he mentioned his fondness for country, and I know he appreciates it. And we saw that when we were Jock in the Nashville Nine in Nashville. So that's why I went with this Dire Straits song, "Set Me Up." Nice. It reminds me of country, and it's so funny. Here's another confession of mine that probably has nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish here. But when I lived in Taiwan, I lived with a bunch of American guys in Seattle. Every song, I think they were big in the country, and every time they hit the dance floor, they would lock their thumbs in their belt loops and just, no matter if it was hard rock or reggae, they would dance like country. And when I was listening to this, I just reminded of my friends from the States. I'm like, I wonder if they're still dancing that way. I reckon they are.
I think that the buckles are bigger and the line dancing is exactly the same.
What, you know, he mentioned Tears for Fears. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, they were big, and I just
Yeah,
I'm not-
I took a pass on that, hoping that you, that you would get the gist of whichever ones that I omitted. I wasn't interested in pursuing. Oh,
and usually I'll take the high road and say, okay,
yeah,
I'll try and salvage this, but I'm like, yeah, no,
no,
thanks.
I'm too much of a prick to endorse that. But I'll tell you a road I will go down, and I know that he said he likes Harry Styles, and
Okay.
I went back to the early Harry Styles catalog, to the
One Direction.
to the infancy, to the One Direction, and of course I have a 20-year-old daughter, and I did not take her to a One Direction concert. I drove her, I dropped her off and waited for her outside of the concert. She went with a friend. And
That's very almost famous of you. Did you have a whistle?
well, you know, the thing about being my kid is you probably went to 40 shows before you were 12 or 13, or, you know,
Yeah.
going to shows. The stadium experience certainly wasn't foreign to her. It probably was with me.
Yeah.
But she was with a friend, and these girls were just losing their mind. So we have this thing, and you know, when and the reason I chose that song, "What Makes You Beautiful," is because we would do these father-daughter things, and that was our song to rip it up on the dance floor. That was our sacred, because you know it was going to be played.
Yeah.
And the school she went to had this event, this father-daughter or event, and that was our thing, and we still do it. It's sacred to us, so that's why I lobbed that one in. And the song doesn't suck.
Well, I did listen
Said
to
the
it.
guy who doesn't like the Beatles. Oh,
Well,
the Beatles are terrible, but you should hear this One Direction song. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, and I went with Pure Sugar, Watermelon Sugar High, and I don't know. I have nothing to say about it. It's a good song, I guess. You know, it's nothing that I'll be playing it too often. You know,
No,
so Jock can have it.
Yeah, and I think that that's more of as he mentioned, that is a song that's more triggered by the relationship with his daughter and what the music that she likes. And this is definitely the situation with me throwing that one in, because it's a fun thing that we do together. You wouldn't catch me going to a One Direction concert by myself.
Yeah.
You'd get arrested. I mean, a single 57-year-old, you know, a guy going alone to a concert, you'd be thrown in a cage, I'm sure. But that's beyond creepy.
So you always have an out, because if someone finds something in your record collection, you go, oh,
well, it's my daughter's.
You know, yeah, exactly. So you can't come over to my place as a single guy and go, what's this doing here? I'm like, I was actually waiting for Jock's daughter to come over. That's just I'm not going to get out of that.
When people find my In Sync record collection, I just say, well, it's not mine, it's mine.
Hey, he mentioned, I was surprised he mentioned Beautiful South. Because and I guess that would have been fourth year, because I was actually in Toronto at that time, and I couldn't find any Beautiful South that I thought would work. But most certainly before that, a party song was Happy Hour by the House Martins, and that's where Paul, and I don't know if the other guy, I'm for sure Paul came from that. Paul,
you and I duplicated that pick.
Oh, okay. Yes, we did. Yeah.
And I mean, it's such a great song. When it came out, I was living in London at the time, and it was one of those songs that were in the bars. And I loved when it came on, because the only alternative to it was Europe's Final Countdown, which I loathed and still hate. I can't even hear the first two bars of that without losing my mind. So the House Martins was just a great interruption in 86, I guess it was. So I will be forever grateful to the House Martins for releasing a song that was on in the same run where I had to tolerate the final countdown.
Well, you know,
Or-
I actually have an affinity for Beautiful South,
Yeah.
because it was 1989, and that song, pencil case song, "This Song's for You." It was about the girls in pencil case, just something like, it was a big
Mhm.
pop song at the time. And Jock hates pop music, so I'm surprised he mentioned Beautiful South. But I was in charge at the restaurant. There was a number of us, and I was the ringleader. And I'm like, Beautiful South's coming to town. We're going. It was
Nice.
it was at the Masonic Temple,
Oh, yeah.
and I worked in Yorkville, so that my life was very much in that area. And there was a girl who just arrived on the scene, Pamela, and it's like, oh, I'm so in. I'm like, a little too enthusiastic, but I quite liked her. And but I'd known her for like a week, so I literally bought, I think it was 16 tickets. Like, it was a large number, and well in advance, we had it all planned. And my buddy Kresh and I used to stay up late, smoking ciggies, listening to music, and so as the concert draws closer, we didn't have WhatsApp and no cell phones, but I went around like, are you going? Are you going? You going? And was like, yeah, totally confirmed. And I had the pre-party at my condo, and so everything was going great, except everyone 16 plus Pamela confirmed. I'm like,
Oh.
so at that time, you actually had to walk down to the restaurant and pick up your paycheck, So it was payday. So Kresh and I had the day off, day of the concert, and it was a wintry day. And we go pick up, and all I was going, I was just like over and over. I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? I guess I can't go. I'll have the pre-party, but I can't go. And then at Yorkville, at Movenpick, our restaurant, and I'm like, hey, let's go and see if they're doing a sound check. As luck would have it, side door was open to the Masonic Temple about 2:30, 3 in the afternoon, and they're playing indoor soccer in front of the stage, because it's general admission, so there's no chairs, right? So and so they're playing indoor soccer. They see us, wet boots, and you guys want to play? Yeah. We played indoor soccer, and then maybe 20 minutes later, they were pretty much done. And Kresh is a pretty good soccer player, and so I go over to Paul. I'm like, hey, we're coming to the show tonight. And as an idiot would say, like I said, I bought a lot of tickets. I'm bringing all my friends. I didn't think you'd sell out. Like, that's not the way to ask for a favor. I didn't think you were that popular.
I had no idea that you were going to sell more than 16 tickets.
Exactly. And and he says, oh, no problem. I'll put you on the guest list. So I'm like, mission accomplished. And he's like, no one, like, no managers really around. And everyone's kind of going away. It's just the three of us. And I said, how will I get on the list? He says, just write it down on a piece of paper. I'm like, had my back of my paycheck, tore out the stub, wrote my name, piece of paper like this big. And he's like, great, mate, see you tonight, in his pocket. I'm like, oh, this is not the best system. And so now Kresh and I leave. We're like, amazing experience, but now all I can think of is, are we on or not? Like, did it happen or did it not happen? Those pants, are they going to stay on? So pre-party at my place, fully discussed the plan. I was the last guy to go in. Everyone went in front of me. Yeah. And I said to Kresh, like, if I'm not on the list, I'm not on the list. Yeah. I turn around, everyone has a great time. And so I get to the door, and I wasn't cocky, but I was like, I'm on the guest list. And she says, oh, great. And has a clipboard, a bunch of names, and what's your name? I'm like, Brad. And we're going through, and she's like, no. I'm like, oh. So here's the deal. I was playing indoor soccer with the guys earlier. I know, unbelievable. And so I wrote down my name on a piece of paper, and you put it, piece of paper. She literally has a bag, like a Crown Royal bag or something like that, like something similar to that. And then goes and pulls up these pieces of paper, puts them on the clipboard that's now flat. My name is there. And she says, enjoy the show.
No way.
So
that's awesome.
So I will always love the Beautiful South in some way, shape, or form. So So
Nice.
I don't know if anyone else is going to mention the Beautiful South, so I had to get that story out now.
Good on you.
Where were we? Where are we going now?
You were gonna. I think you should tee up a. He mentioned Style Council.
Well, you chose it. The walls come tumbling down. That
Did
was
you-
your choice.
Did you
I
choose
love
that?
it.
Oh, that's okay.
No,
So-
yeah, I know, because I actually thought, because we had a conversation months ago where I'm like, my dirty little pleasure Style Council, and you're like, Paul Weller, sell out. And I'm like, oh, he'll never hear
well, and here's how I can appreciate that song is because Weller wrote that with a full intention of it being a song for the jam before that kind of went south. So that's an interesting bit of it, but it's a great song. Weller locked into some good soul and did I think did an admirable job, and I love The Walls Come Tumbling Down. So
yeah, because right off the get go, it's there. Like it's a very
great
like
horns.
a mini introduction, but you're like right there with it. Spoon. I can't tell you how much I love Spoon. Like I really do. It's got a funky rhythm to it. It just a lot of their music just makes me happy. Like it's stuff that gets me going.
Yeah, they just played down the street here. Last time I saw them was a couple of years ago at the Danforth Music Hall, and it was just joyous. It's just such a good show, a great venue, and good times with some pals, and it was just it was a great time. So I've always liked the song "Do You." It's just it flows nicely. It's got some good pickup. It's got kind of a sweet sort of Wilco vibe to it in my mind, just in my head.
Yeah.
So that's the one I chose. Which song did you go to for Spoon?
Oh, that's what I did. I did Do Me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did the same one. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's what I thought. We were on the same page. And I love it because I love the lyrics in it where he's in love with the girl, saying all the things he loves about her, but he actually says he's pretty flawed, and that's me. Like chances are I'm gonna fuck this up.
Sure. That's honesty.
And he makes me think of Lloyd Dobler. Lloyd Dobler and Say Anything. It's like,
Sure.
I'm just gonna to her dad, I'm just gonna hang with your daughter. I'm really into kickboxing, sport of the future, but this summer I'm just gonna hang with your daughter.
Climie mentioned Squeeze,
Mhm.
a band the album Cool for Cats I always loved, and caught them early on, I think probably 1979, again at the Danforth Music Hall, and the support act for them was my great local heroes, a band called the Mods, which were just super Toronto late 70s power pop band, and just love those guys. Scarborough based, and their record was later remastered by Chris Spedding and released, and is probably one that I play in the top 10 at home. So Mods and
Right on.
Squeeze were in support of RG Bargy, I think, at the time, and for when he mentioned Squeeze, of course I went to Pulling Muscles from Michelle.
Yeah.
Super pop song. Just Jules Holland was still in the band playing keys at the time, so there's a lot of that represented in the record, and it's just got a sweet sound.
Yeah, and lots of things you can cotton on to too, like mention of William Tell, and just a bunch of buzzwords in there that you can always like kind of grasp onto, and of course the sexual innuendo of like something like The Holiday's Over, and I think I wrapped it up nicely. Like I think he fooled around behind the chalet or whatever, like the cottage, and I'm like, yeah, well done, good, mission accomplished. Go back to London now.
It's the Tilbrook and Difford of a writing duo, just magic.
And that was big for Jock and me in first year, because I actually remember hearing that every single morning, because I did that hideous sport called rowing in first year, and our friend Peter Burgess is the only guy that we knew with a car, and so most of the rowing team would pile into that car at 5:30 in the morning, and he had that one cassette on every morning, singles, 45s and under, and so I got my fill of it, that's for sure. So that was definitely a first year first year soundtrack for us.
So that's a reasonable reference to one of our lines of questioning where we ask is there a song that takes you to an exact time and place? And I think for you, if you heard that Squeeze cassette,
Always.
you're on the way to rowing at 5 a.m.
Absolutely. So yeah, I enjoyed the sounds, but I knew it was on the way to immense pain, and I was probably hungover. So and I did Annie Get Your Gun just because it's a bit of a rocker for them,
Sure.
It goes up, and then you did that John Mayer song, you went live, because I think that's the only version you can grab. Like, it wasn't on an album. I think it was on a live album or live video or something like that. I had to pop it up on YouTube to find it.
Oh yeah, the Bill Withers cover of Ain't No Sunshine. Yeah. Mayer oscillates with me in my how I hold him in great esteem as a musician. He's just not, in my mind, a great quality human, but the skill is just unbelievable. I think it's for that reason that I moved to a cover, and he really does do that song justice. It's a great tune. And if I had to pick one, I liked how he handled it. It was great.
Yeah, well, and same for me. I picked a cover too with Jimi Hendrix. I'll Wait Until Tomorrow. And he funks it up quite a bit.
Sure.
So he takes the heaviness out of it, and it's pretty funky.
Skills.
He's not my favorite human, but there's no denying. So, and then no secret, Jock loves Paul Simon. Put a guitar in his hand, and it's going to be me and Julio down by the schoolyard as he's warm up. That's how he gets in the flow. So I've heard that many a time.
And the evening that you and I were in our space costumes in September, we ended up in my room with Bladen. And Jock found my guitar, and we heard me and Julio 3 times before he was ready to move on with his repertoire. But he moved through it very well. So by the 3rd time, I was really hoping that he knew at least one more song, and he did. And he knows a ton, and I had a great time listening to him. Full credit to Climie. He has got a great voice. He's a good player, and he knows some cool songs.
He knows his range too. He's kind of, I felt he nailed that little pocket where he can sing very well. Like, he won't go too far out of it, and I don't know how that works as you age, but I'm pretty sure that pocket doesn't get too much bigger, so
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. It's always fun with Jock at the cottage, and when he comes over here, that's why I have guitars in my house. They're just for Jock, because I don't know how to play them. Every time he comes, I go into the guitar shop and get everything tuned up. I'm like, here you go. And then so I did You Can Call Me Al, because it was that was when we used to watch videos in university, and that was the one I'm pretty sure with Chevy Chase in it, and it was just like a total idiot video, but it was a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was like they threw 30 grand at the budget, and Chevy Chase just do something stupid. So so I don't know, it was a fun song for sure. What do you got?
He mentioned Billie Eilish.
Oh God, yeah.
William Eyelash as Rain. It was a great video where Rainn Wilson from the U.S. version of The Office visits Billie Eilish at home because she's a big Office fan, and he quizzes her on very difficult questions about episodes of The Office. So you should check that out. It's actually
I have to, yeah.
And he does refer to as William Eyelash in many occasions through it, so it's pretty good. You know what? I'm I'm a fan. I think her music's great. It's a big. I think it's cool. It's different, and in the doldrums, it's kind of interesting. And I think the her big hit, the big song, "Bad Guy." I think it's a cool song.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like, I don't know if it's in the lyrics. She explained the lyrics. It's like, it rings true. Like, it's so smart. Where she says, people who tell you how bad they aren't bad. It's the bad people are the people who do shit and have no idea they're, and all these. We live in a world of people fronting on Instagram and showing how glorious they are. If you've got it all together, you no need to flaunt it. You don't need to put it on
Right.
Instagram. So, and I think she taps into that really well.
Mhm.
I like the story of her family. Like, I actually really like her because her and her brother
Yep.
couldn't be tighter. Um, and I like that the family was so into art, and into the kids doing their thing within certain parameters, but the parameters were quite wide that they didn't have to go to bed at a certain time, even when they're 8 or 9 or 10, as long as they were creating something. So,
Right.
they couldn't be zoning out. They couldn't be just like chatting, but if they were making something, they could stay up all night if they want to. Like, I'm sure that could backfire, but at the same time, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just to see somebody that young putting it together and doing it on her own terms. I mean, the way she chooses to dress focuses the interest on the music, thankfully. And but she's super bright, very, very smart, and I think she's got I think her music has legs. I don't think this is just going to be a 1 or 2 or 3 record wonder. I think that she's going to
Mhm.
be a contributor for a long time. I think she's pushed music forward in a fairly short period of time, and I don't get to listen to a ton of brand new contemporary music that's aimed at younger people, but that stood out to me
Yeah,
and kind of grabbed me as being something cool.
yeah, and I think she's the type of artist that will probably put out stuff that she doesn't really give a shit if people like, and then there'll be the hit, and but I think she's got enough clout and credibility, and I think her fans will like it anyways, because they're pretty
Oh, for sure.
devoted. But she's gonna just do her thing, and that's, yeah, I can't see her being very commercial. So,
Yeah, I mean, she's the type of person I mean, I've always gravitated to the weirdos, and I think she was probably a weirdo kid, although she's still young, obviously,
mhm,
woman. But I think we all probably knew people like her, super artsy, a little bit out there, and I just love the I don't give a fuck attitude.
yeah,
It's very punky for her to say, like, fuck this, I'm gonna wear what I want, I'm gonna make the music that I want. And if you
yeah,
don't like it, fuck it, too bad. I don't care. I'm just here to make some
yeah,
art, which
yeah,
is
exactly.
I went with Nights on Broadway.
Well, we did the same damn one.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, we
Okay,
did.
that's not bad
I
for us,
totally.
because
No,
I think we chose 4 of the same ones, which is
yes,
actually
I
pretty rare
know.
for us.
Yeah.
But it's a you know what? It's a great song. It's got a build. It's,
Hmm.
it's got some funky guitar. It's coherent. It tells a great story, again, like most good songs do. And it's good. It's so funny that in 1976, I think I probably would have had a coronary if somebody caught me listening to the Bee Gees. But my mom loved the Bee Gees.
Wow,
And,
good friend of Tim Fabry's mom.
and oh yeah, like Pat did a lot of the disco phase for Pat. There was a lot of dancing in the kitchen. There was a lot of doing the bump around around the kitchen counter there. But I found myself more than once just cramming on little Bee Gees because they're damn fine musicians.
They're damn fine, and I love that song because it starts out a bit funky.
Hmm.
It goes into a little bit of disco, but not
No,
hardcore disco.
it's not
But
a
then it slows right down,
Mhm.
like about 2/3 of the way in. It's almost like a talking thing, and then they kind of go back into disco, and it's like it's I don't know, for all the boys that I hang out with, like it's moody, like it
It is
actually
moving.
it really talks to a lot of my friends who are moody, and it's like happy, not happy. Oh, we need to whisper, and it's like, oh, we're having a party
But it's
again,
not an
you know.
anthem.
No,
It's
it's not.
not an anthem. It's just
No.
it's
Yeah.
a straightforward, just yeah. It takes you on a little bit of a ride, which I think is what it's all about. And I think for the most part, a lot of your picks, the ones we've discussed, do exactly that. While Jock threw us a little bit of a curveball into what he gave us versus what he wants, the inputs didn't exactly compute with what our outputs are. But in the choices, the common thread, no question, is good storytelling in each and every one of these.
Yeah.
Very
And
lyrically strong and storytelling.
yeah, and you know what? There's I was looking at a lot of those British picks. There was a lot of at that time, especially with the songs we chose, just trashing the shit out of the Thatcher government. Like
Sure.
that's obviously pretty easy, but
Yeah.
there's I think it's 4 of our songs, and it's like, yeah, that was once again talking about how they actually started the Falklands War just to get people off industrial disease,
Yeah.
dire straits. It's like they reference that, and it's like, yeah, they actually started a war just so people wouldn't know how shitty it was back here, and that and getting back, I remember Jock was talking about, so when he mentioned Bee Gees, he was talking about the death of disco and what happened in Cleveland with the burning of the disco records, and to me that it became trashing disco, which is trashing fun, but it turned into the anti-gay movement for a little while, and that's the really sad part. Like, a lot of people got hurt because it was cool to shit on disco, which meant you shit on people who like disco, which is a big part of the gay crowd. And it's such a sad time. And it's like, it's not like we've learned anything. It's not like we learned about being nice to all kinds of people, but it's just another example of like picking something and then lopping into something else, and innocent people fucking suffer because of it. No, I just went political. It drives me crazy.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a pure disco song that is a downer.
Yeah,
you see,
absolutely.
You see the idea of soul and funk coming together, and the evolution of disco. There was a positivity about it, an uplifting scene that, of course, was going to be adopted by the gay community. So the association isn't necessarily unfair. What's unfair is the way that it was deconstructed to as a power play for people who liked, another form of music. That was generally not as joyous. Certainly didn't bring people together. And I just got a great, I got a great view of it, and I love the guys I went to school with. We laugh about it all the time because, the two camps, the disco guys and stuff, and at the end of high school, there was a big shindig. It wasn't really it wasn't a formal so much as it was run by the Italian club, and it was so funny to see all of the former rockers from 1978 at an event called the Festa, and it was just a full-on disco, wonderful party, and it turned out to be the best party in high school by a mile, not even by a little bit. Yeah. And it was a pure celebration of disco and all the good things that it brought to it. And I think that it provided freedom for the guys who I knew who weren't out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was a difficult place to be out in the early 80s in an all-boys school.
Yeah.
Were just having the time of their lives. And it was like, finally, you could take a breath. It was, you're leaving high school, you're going to have this freedom. But my buddies who weren't out yet, you could tell this was just a fantastic celebration. And you knew that music was going to be a part of the way that they enjoyed themselves moving forward. It was just going to be a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
So, got anything left? I think we covered most of. I covered all my songs.
I think we went through the entire thing. The only thing I threw in there was Homeless, which is really Ladysmith Black Mambazo, but appears on Paul Simon's Graceland.
Yeah.
And I only threw that in because it's another one that I absolutely love. And it's another one that I can listen to 1,000 times. And just the, the intonation. Now, obviously, Paul Simon was probably nothing more than the music director on it. But what Paul Simon was able to do was to push Ladysmith Black Mambazo to the forefront, so that their music could be widely appreciated on the heels of people appreciating more things African at the end of the horrible apartheid era. So that was an interesting. I had to throw that one in. I don't think it would necessarily make it on the list, but I had to toss that one in because I just love it.
We could close with that. But
we didn't have a Stones.
Paint It Black. Paint It Black is mine.
I went with that too.
Okay, that was our fourth. Yeah. So that was the fourth thing we agreed on. That was their acid time. And they're playing the sitar.
It's pretty evident.
It's pretty evident. But for it's a pretty rocking song for a fucking dark song.
Absolutely.
Jesus, it's like, you're partying to that song, but if you really pay attention, it's like you should be crying.
It's not to pay too much attention.
Yeah, it's good not to pay too much attention, but and how many times can you have a rocker song with the sitar in there? It's like, I don't know. It's a pretty magical song. And it is freaking well written. Like the words in that, I don't know. I've read it a couple times over the years, and like, Jesus Christ, that's pretty good poetry.
Yeah, it's a beauty. And again, I'm not the biggest Stones guy in the world, but I'll enjoy that one every single time. It's all love it.
Well, I'll always have something against the Stones because it was once again 1989, and I slept outside in Toronto to buy tickets because that was their farewell tour.
Of course.
Of course, night of sleep. But that was, and I don't even know the venue. It was a big venue, obviously. It must have been.
It would have been Skydome, probably. What year?
It definitely would have been Skydome, 89, 90. So it was a Skydome for sure. And but I remember not being thrilled at that concert because he had yet to realize their decline. And what I mean by that is that he still thought he was young. He thought his voice was vibrant and could go, and it was cracking up and breaking all the time. And then I remember I was kind of off the Stones because I slept overnight and it wasn't even that good of a show. And then I think I hadn't really paid too much attention to them. And then that Scorsese film came out where he did of them in Harlem, where it was a good little documentary, but it was just on that show. And then I'm like, oh, well done, because he figured out the power of those amazing backup singers. Yeah. He has those girls that he starts the song, they take it over, and he's pretty much just gets in there while he can, but they give all the depth to it. And it's like, wow, you guys sound great again because you stepped away and you just do your dance and you're the front man, but the sound is entirely black sound now, which I enjoy now. Like I could see a live show because of the fact I know I'm going to see, like they say, the 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet from stardom. They're better than the guy in the front. They need the guy in the front, but they're delivering the goods.
I guess when Carolyn and I got together and she was running the program through Labatt's, we were seeing 3 or 4 concerts a week, and the Stones was in that cycle. I think twice in a 6-month time span they played in Toronto, and I was getting a little tired of the inflatable honky tonk woman. Like it seemed a little bit like Canada's Wonderland, and I think that they had been enjoying the large venue apparatus to have these these kind of crappy side things, which was a little bit more of a circus than the music. And I think they kind of let that slide a little bit. In the early days of Skydome, the sound was absolutely atrocious. This particular show that I'm referencing was probably summer of 91, 92. And actually the support act was Spin Doctors.
Okay. Yeah, I would have enjoyed that at the time.
But the sound
For
for
sure.
both was embarrassing. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
It really was. And this was lots of inflatables, lots of prancing and preening, and not a whole lot of music. It was a bit of a disappointment. So
Yeah. So I was thoroughly disappointed. So, but I think we each bought 6 tickets. We sold 4. We turned a profit. So
Perfect.
it wasn't all lost.
all transactional. Good for you. That's awesome.
Well, is that a wrap, my friend?
I think that's a wrap, my friend.